So I had a concern about how to use material IDs with 3D Coat Textura. It is possible, it is here, but it's not the same as Substance Painter. And I want to take a look at that so I can show you what I know so far on how to get it to map across the right way. So here's the first step. You've got multiple different objects here. So I've got tread, I've got trim, and I've got the wheel right here. These are separate objects. And if I go into shading, you can see that I've colorized each one, but that's not really important. It's just for clarity. But each one has its own name. So that's the first part getting set up for your material IDs. Now, you're going to take all of this, you're going to pick all of these right here, and you're going to export them out as an FBX file or the file type of your choice. So then you're going to go over to 3D Coat Textura. I'm going to go to Import Model for Per Pixel Painting. And you notice we've got OBJ, FBX, STL, and all those different file types down there. I've got Wheel FBX right here. I'm going to go ahead and open that one. And here is your first indicator that something is happening correctly. You see that we've got the UV set name here for wheel, trim, and tread. So I'm going to set it to 4K. They'll all change. Hit OK. And then you have your model. So the first thing you want to do when you're in Textura is you want to set up your ambient occlusion and your cavity maps. So that's up here under Textures. Calculate occlusion. If you don't do this, you're going to pick one of these materials and it's going to tell you that you need to do it. But I find that that's a little bit confusing possibly because you might think that you need to do it every single time you add a material. And then if it doesn't ask it for it, then you wonder what you did maybe wrong. First thing you do, set up the ambient occlusion and the cavity. Now, when I show you here, this area where we can see the material IDs, you want to make sure that you do your ambient occlusion and your cavity map with everything all together because ambient occlusion is going to darken the areas where two objects come together closely. And if you do each one separately, then you're not going to get that. So for example, right down in here, this darker area, of course, in the cracks there. If I have done the trim by itself, then there wouldn't be anything else near it to cause it to create this ambient occlusion layer. So that's kind of your first indicator to maybe something that's going on with this. We've got our various different material IDs. We've got our different bodies, if you will. But if they're all showing, Textura will treat them all as one. But before we go any further with that, we want to go to Textures and calculate the curvature map as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, by the way, back over in ambient occlusion, there was a button that said, do you want to make a new layer? I checked that a long time ago and it does it by default now. So my ambient occlusion layer is up here and it's locked. Now, when the curvature map gets done, it'll pop up for a second and then it will hide just like that. So we've got ambient occlusion and cavity. Now we are free to go pick textures. So now let's take a look at this. So this is how we see what's going on. I've got this metal light texture right here, and I don't know why it's red, but it's blue right here. So that's interesting. But you see what's going on here? The metal light paint right here, it's getting the wheel, it's getting some of the tread, and it's getting the trim. So in order to do each one of these separately, you have to go over here to surface materials. So you pick on this and you'll see that we've got our 3 different material IDs. Now I want to show you another thing here just to validate where this information is coming from. You notice that I have the object name tread, trim, and wheel. And if I go over to my shading workbench, right here, I have got the materials named the same as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each one and put an M in front of the material name. Then I export the entire model again and I re-import. And I want you to see that right down here, we've got M wheel, M trim, and M tread. Just in case you were thinking that maybe the separated objects and their name is what it was keying off of. It is actually looking at the materials. I tell you this because if you've got multiple materials on one mesh, as in you went into edit mode and you picked some faces and you assigned some of those faces to a certain material, and then you picked other faces and you assigned those to a particular material, they would show up here. All right, so we've got the ambient occlusion and the cavity maps created. Now you're going to go over here to surface materials. This is where everything happens. It's different than Substance Painter. It's a little bit weird. I'm going to do another video on how to organize this a little bit better. So I'm going to hide tread and trim, and then I'm going to pick this metal material right here. And in the material preview window, you can see that it's changing that right there. And well, not the others, but you can't see them. If you turn them on, it's going to do it though. So watch this. This is just also another thing you got to know about this material preview window. I hit this and you see it over here, right? You don't see it there. Frequently, when you make a change, if it doesn't show up before you freak out and start changing other things, just move the material preview window a little bit and it will update. So in this case, M-trim is now getting this copper material added to it. So I'm going to close that and the same thing, move it a little bit. Now it's not there. So let's say I like this copper material, so I go ahead and fill the entire layer. Let's go back over to layers. So we've got layer 1 right here. I'm going to add another layer and I'm going to put a paint over the top of it. How about this paint right here? It's still showing red, but it's blue. You come up here and you can change it. It's probably a wise idea to maybe save these, but you can always come down here and just reset them to defaults if you like. So I'll pick a color, save, right click. Now it changed colors there. Fill entire layer. Now I can come back over here to surface materials and I can turn these both on, and as you see, they have not been affected by the material stack that we've added. All right, let's go ahead and get onto the other materials. So I'm going to hide the wheel, and I guess I will hide the trim so we can just work on the tread. So I'm going to move it over here into material preview. You can see that metal light, because it's selected, it's still showing it right there. Now, you decide what you want to do with this, but if I add this into the other layer, it might end up looking different than I want. So I'm going to add another layer. And on this one, I'm going to go for let's just do a plastic color. I was going to say it should maybe be rubber, but let's go ahead and change it to something different. So I can move this over here and let's maybe make this some kind of a color like that. So we'll save that and then we will fill the entire layer. Now I don't want to get too detailed, but I don't want to get too simple at the same time. So I want to add another layer onto this. So maybe I go to some scratches here. Maybe I want something like that. I could edit this and I can change it from that to maybe something that fits a little bit more. Hit OK, save that, fill the entire layer. And then I can come back over here to surface materials and I could see that in context. You see? So that's the idea. Now we might as well just finish this and we'll go ahead and do the trim as well. I don't want that. I'm going to go with a paint. Let's go with a metal over here. We'll go with a shiny copper, shiny brass. That looks pretty okay. Let's apply that. Hold on. Almost forgot. I've already got stuff in layer 6 here. I want this in its own clean layer. So I will fill the entire layer with that. And then I will add some scratches on top of that. Let's give that its own layer. Now the nice thing with adding your own layers is after you're done here, then you have the ability to do some layer blending. Maybe something like that. Maybe that's kind of interesting. And then we'll come back and we'll show the rest of the layers. So that in itself is how you work with the material IDs.